close to halfway down the page. Excuse
me, Rabbi, what page again?
Hold on. We're on 72b.
Thank you.
Okay.
72b2.
It's there's a footnote. Oh, it's B2. What's the footnote?
Footnote 17, just after 17.
Just after 17. Okay. All right. The Mishnah had a few different statements. The first statement was Zegitcha imesi. There were statements that implied that the divorce should be after he died. So, for example, if he says if he dies, or if he says if I die from this illness, or if he says after I die, all of these are invalid statements. If, however, he adds the mehayim from now, mehayim imesi from now if I die, then it works. With the exception of mehayim l'achar misa, he says from now after I die, where we're not sure what he means, and we say chalatz misabemis is a suffix get. Okay. And then we had the second question, which was if he says if I die, and then he got up and he died from some other illness, and we'll discuss that in a few minutes. In other words, he said this should be divorced if I die from this cancer, and he died from a car accident, or he died from a heart attack, or something else. Okay, so Rav Huna discussed the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi's opinion was based on the date in the document proves that it was always given mehayim from today. And this is in general Rabbi Yossi's opinion. According to Rabbi Yossi's opinion, Rav Huna posits that if he says if I die, he means to say today if I die. And that's if he says imesi if I die. However, there's a second version of this Gemara, a seifa, on the end of the Mishnah. Let's explain. This is a divorce after I die. It's not a valid divorce. Rav Huna says, the first scenario we're talking about is if the guy says, if I die. And now we're switching to a scenario where he says, after I die. This should be divorced after I die. Says Rabbi Yossi, chalatzas. We give chalitza. It's a suffix divorce. How do we know this? According to the rabbis, if somebody says mehayim ulachar misa, then we don't know if he means mehayim today or he means lachar misa. So we say it's a suffix divorce, suffix get. However, according to Rabbi Yossi, the mehayim is sort of implied always. And therefore, if he says la'achar misa, it has the same law as if he said mehayim la'achar misa. It's a suffix get. The question previously we had in Rav Huna was, if according to Rabbi Yossi's manash shtam mechiach alav, so why is it only a suffix divorce? It should be a vana divorce. If every imesi is like he said mehayim imesi, so it should be a certain divorce. And the Gemara twisted itself around, pretzeled itself, and finally we came to the conclusion we're not sure if the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi this much. But now we have a simple solution. According to Rabbi Yossi, this is a suffix get. Why? Because he said both. He said mehayim, he said lachar misa. One second. So the Gemara says pshita. This should be obvious. Me to say I would think it's not so obvious. Rabbi Yossi b'haka Rebbe svirli. Rabbi Yossi holds like a Rebbe. The Amar Gittin al Yahava v'chalitza nami lo tivay kamashmon the loy Rebbe savrak Rabbi Yossi v'loy Rebbe savrak Rebbe. We'll explain this in a moment. Let's just say that Rebbe says mehayim ulachar misa today after I die, right? It's a clash over there. Suffix get. Rebbe says no, it's not a suffix. Vaday divorce. Vaday, it's good. We'll explain in a moment. Rabbi Yossi disagrees with that statement. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi would say it's a suffix get, just like the Rabbanan say it's a suffix get. Just like the Rabbanan say mehayim ulachar misa is a suffix get, Rabbi Yossi would say la'achar misa is also a suffix get. Together. Okay, V'lo Rabbi Yosi, lo Rabbi Yosi Savar Karabi, v'lo Lo Rabbi Savar Rabbi Yosi, v'lo Rabbi Yosi Savar Karabi, Rabbi Lo Savar Rabbi Yosi the Tani because I get. Rabbi disagrees with Rabbi Yosi because he says. One second. Rabbi Savar Rabbi Yosi Tani because I get. Let me to Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Savar Rabbi Tani because I get. Let me to Rabbi. Okay, the Gemara will bring down the original brisa of both Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi, and each one of them say in their halacha they give the opposing position's opinion, and then they say kazeh get. This is get. Kazeh meaning this specifically is a divorce, but I disagree with Rabbi Yosi, and Rabbi Yosi says I disagree with Rabbi. So each one of them disagrees with each other. Rabbi Mahi, what's Rabbi's opinion? The Tanya we learned, it's a get for a get. He says today, if after I die, it's a suffix get. That's the opinion of the Chachamim. Rabbi Omer kazeh get. Rabbi says the divorce is valid. 1 second. So therefore, Rabbi we see holds that is a ivada get. It's a complete divorce. There's no question about it.
Isn't it because it says from today?
Correct, but the Chacham say that if you said from today, it would only be a suffix. Today and after I die is a contradiction. So, in other words, if Rabbi Yosi would hold of Rabbi, then even if he didn't say Mehayom, it would be a vada get. But Rabbi Yosi doesn't agree with Rabbi, and Rabbi doesn't agree with Rabbi Yosi. Okay, Rabbi Yosi, what's Rabbi Yosi's original opinion? It's time we learned. Cost kisvu utnugat lishti and loibosi mikan vayud beis chodesh. He says, write and give a divorce to my wife. I don't come from now within 12 months. Okay, what happened? They wrote the divorce within 12 months, and they gave it after the 12-month period. It's not a divorce. This is a valid divorce. Why is it not a valid divorce? Because Rabbi Yosi interprets the fact that he did not say, if I don't come within 12 months, then give a divorce to my wife. 1 second.
It's giving the divorce after it should have taken effect.
1 second. Right. If he wanted to command the divorce to be written and given, he would have said, if I don't come, then write it and give it. The fact that he said, write it and give it if I don't come within 12 months, he meant to say, write it and give it if I don't come within 12 months. After 12 months. In other words, give it after the 12-month period. And this type of interpretation is sort of in line with the opinion of Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi is also interpreting the date of the document as if a document's date is sort of leads to a conclusion within the body of the text itself, and that would be in line with Rabbi Yosi's opinion. And Rabbi Yosi disagrees with Rabbi, and he says that if you say mehayom l'achar misa, according to Rabbi Yosi, you don't even actually have to say mehayom. It's like an automatic mehayom if the document has a date on it. It's still a suffix divorce. It's not a vada yet. Okay. So he gives it.
I really don't understand Rabbi Yosi, because if I don't come back after 12 months and give it after 12 months, he may be dead.
No, you're talking about where he's live, which is a scenario where he said he's not going to come back. He's on a business trip and he didn't come back.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence to say that he died.
Okay, so the assumption is he's still alive.
Correct. Okay. So he gives a divorce on condition that he dies from this illness. Then he gets better and he dies from an illness. It seems to be a different illness. Rav Huna says, a divorce is like a gift. Just like with regard to a divorce, with regard to a gift, if somebody's deathly ill, terminally ill, and he gives out these last will and testament gifts, and then he gets better from his illness, he could change his mind. So a divorce as well, if he gets better, he can change his mind. Uma gittin afagav delay parish, kiman amar ksuvu afagav delay martnu. Just like with regard to a divorce. Afagav delay, 1 second. Uma gittin afagav delay parish, kiman amar ksuvu afagav delay martnu. Afanasa kiman amar martnu afagav delay martnu. Konomine. Okay, and a divorce and a gift is something similar, has similar rules to a divorce that's given at the end of his life. In other words, just like when a guy gives a divorce at the end of his life, if he says ksuvu, he says write it, he means to say give it as well, even if he didn't actually say it. So too with a gift, if he says give it, even if he didn't tell the guy to actually make a kinyan, he means to imply to him to make a kinyan. Okay, now the Mishnah says, so he gets better, then he dies. I'm denied, so we try to evaluate. Is it because of the original illness that he died or not? Okay. If you say that if he gets better, he can change his mind. Why do we need to evaluate why he got better? Once he gets better, we presume he never meant to give the divorce. The guy is terminally ill. He didn't make the scenario of Rav Huna is where he did not make a condition. He gave a divorce to his wife because he was terminally ill. Then he gets better. Rav Huna says, "Oh, it's automatic. The get is nullified because presumably it's as if the get was written on a condition." If that's the case, then once he gets better, effectively the divorce is withdrawn. So why do we need to evaluate why he died? It should be automatic that the divorce should be withdrawn since he got better. One second. So the son of Rav Yosef said, in the name of Rav, he went from one illness straight into the next illness. He never got better. Gemara says, he got up. Gemara says, he got better from one illness, but then fell into a different illness. Gemara says, it says he got better when he was walking in the marketplace. Evidently, he actually felt better. So the Gemara says, halach al mashantay. Means he got to the marketplace, but he was still sort of bent over on his cane. Since, in other words, specifically, if he's halach hamashanta, meaning that he never really got better, he was ill the whole time. The question is, why did he die? And that's when we have to evaluate. But if he got better completely, then we wouldn't have to evaluate it at all. We would presume immediately that the divorce is withdrawn. If he was if he became healthy and he completely got up and continued walking, we presume that we presume the divorce is withdrawn and we don't actually have to evaluate him. Okay, so Gemara says, Shema Mina, we see from here, and if we have a terminally ill person, he got better from his cancer, and then he has a serious bacterial infection, then the gift is still valid. So Gemara says, that's correct. Amar Balazim Shmed Rav, Rav Balazim says the name of Rav, a terminally ill fellow that moved from one severe illness to the next severe illness. Matnas and Matana, his divorces are still valid. Okay. Rabba v'Rava le'svirlu had Rav Huna. Rabba and Rava disagree with the statement of Rav Huna. What was the statement of Rav Huna? Rav Huna wasn't talking about somebody who made a condition. Rav Huna says you have a regular guy who's terminally ill. Okay, it's a regular guy. You have a guy who's terminally ill. What happens is he gives a regular divorce. He does not make a condition in the divorce. Rav Huna says if he gets better, then Rav Huna says if he gets better, then the document is withdrawn. Then the divorce is invalid. Whereas Rab and Rava disagree. They say that the document is not withdrawn. Why? Because if we do say that the guy gets better, the divorce is automatically withdrawn. Again, this is a divorce given without a condition. Then people are going to think that the divorce was only valid after he died. And therefore, a divorce is valid after a person dies, which is an incorrect understanding. In other words, why? Because you see two terminally ill people. They both wrote divorce to his wife, to their wives. One of them gets better, no divorce. There was no condition in the document. There was no condition. Divorce is still withdrawn. And the other guy dies, we say, oh, it's a valid divorce. The logical implication is, when is the divorce valid? After he dies. Because the guy didn't die, he got better, he's healthy again, he's cured, so then that's why he's withdrawing the document. And we don't want people to think that you can divorce a woman after she dies. So Gemara says, okay, hold on a second. This is obviously, we've seen this Gemara now probably at least 4 or 5 times. It's come up at least once in Ksubas. It's come up before as well. In I think it's come in Satan and Thomas as well. Hold on a second. You mean to say that the divorce is biblically valid? In other words, when we have a terminally ill patient who gives a divorce to their wife without a condition, it's as if they had a condition in the document, right? It's as if they said, this should only be a divorce if I die.
Page position, please.
73a, about 8 lines back, 8 lines down.
First one in the line.
Le'almo.
I see. Thank you.
Now, the guy, what happens? The terminally ill guy, he dies. And what do we say? It's not a good divorce. She needs to do chalitza. Hold on a second. Biblically, she's divorced, because biblically the divorce is valid. So how can you rabbinically say that she's not divorced? And so the Gemara says, "In Kollel Mekadosh Adai the Rabbanon Mekadosh." Whoever gives kedushin does so with the intent, with the consent of the rabbis. V'afkinu Rabbanon lekadushin minei, and the rabbis they consider the kedushin null and void. So Amal Ravina Rashi, so Ravina says for Rashi, "Tenach the kiddush b'kaspa." This makes sense if they got married with money. Why? Because as we said before, there's a concept called hefker beds and hefker. The rabbis have the ability to transfer of their own will, as long as there's a convocation of a court, to transfer money from one person to another person, even if that person doesn't actually deserve the money. However, kiddush would be a ma'ik l'meimer. If one's kedushin was based on an intimate relationship, which satisfies the requirement for kedushin, ma'ik l'meimer, then this is not going to work. Relay. So Ravina says, because he got married with the intent, with the sort of consent of the rabbis. The rabbis considered his affair to be one of promiscuity, not one of marriage, and therefore the kedushin is not valid, and therefore it's as if she was never married. We learned this should be a divorce today if I die from this illness. Okay, the guy's sick with cancer, and then what happened? He died in a house fell on him, or a snake bit him. In a get, it's not a divorce. Let's say he says, if I don't get up from this illness, and then a house fell on him, or a snake bit him, this would be a valid divorce. One second. Okay. So in other words, the difference here, simplistically, the difference here is, in the first scenario, he said, if I die from this illness, and he didn't die from the illness, he died from car accident. The other scenario, he said, if I don't get better from this illness, and he never got better, even if he died from a car accident, he still hasn't gotten better from that illness. Okay, the Gemara is not satisfied with that distinction, because the real question is, did he think he's going to die in a car accident? And the answer is no. So Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. What's the difference in the first and the second part? The second part of the brisa. So they sent the question to Israel. Shalchom Mitam. They sent back from Israel. Achlo Ari Ein Lano. We had a similar story. where a guy gave his wife a divorce. If I don't get better, a terminally ill fellow, if I don't get better from this illness, then it should be a divorce. And what happens? A lion ate him. It's an extremely unusual occurrence. And the rabbi said it's not a valid divorce. Why? Even though technically speaking, he never got better from that illness, he never thought that he would die by the hands of a lion. And therefore, it was never in his intention when he wrote the divorce. So they disagree with the Brisa. Similar story. There's a fellow who sold a field to his friend. He said, if there's anything happens, the field is taken away from you, I'll reimburse you. Eventually, what happened was they dammed up an area, and his field was in the dammed up area. I'm sorry, they redirected the river. They sort of channeled the river over his field. Also, so he came to Ravina. So the guy who bought the field says to the seller, "You promise me any type of inus, any type of event that happens and I lose the field, you'll reimburse me. I'd like a reimbursement." So Ravina says, "Look, listen, that's you promised him. Go give him a new field." So that Ravacha was at the court, and he says, "Hold on a second. The guy never intended that this was one of the possibilities of why he would lose a field. How often do you think that a river will be redirected onto your property?" The question sort of was rolling around. And the question came to Rava. Rava says, this is an uncommon event, and therefore you do not need to reimburse him. If I don't get better from this illness, and the house fell over him, or snake bit him, I raise a get. Second half of the brisa, he says, if I don't get better from this illness, see, that's cancer. And what happens? He dies in a car accident. What's the halacha? It is a get, because ultimately speaking, he never got better from the cancer. Second half of the brisa, it's a valid divorce. So over here also, this is he never thought he was going to be eaten by a lion or die in a car accident. And yet the divorce is valid. Rava wasn't impressed by this question. He said, hold on. Look at the first part of the brisa. The first part of the brisa says, if I die from this illness and he dies from a car accident, it's not a valid divorce. Why? Presumably because he never expected to die from a car accident. Okay, so fine. So we have a brisa that's difficult. Okay, so Rav Acha, he says, hold on a second. So you have a question on a brisa. Okay, fine. So now resolve the brisa, but it's still a valid question. Why are you ruling that the seller in this case is exempt from reimbursing when the river was redirected over his property? In other words, why are you ruling this? Because we have a brisa that seems to say otherwise. Now, okay, the brisa is a little difficult to understand, but that doesn't exempt you from answering the question. So answer the brisa. Explain the brisa. What's going on? So Ravina says, no, I am entitled to refute the question because the brisa itself is difficult. Because the beginning and the end of the brisa are difficult, therefore I reject the notion of the brisa, and I'm not interested in answering a question from a brisa that I consider rejected. Zilbas is far, go by logic. What's the logic? That nobody ever, if you don't expect the event to happen, it could never have been included on a condition of the sale of the field. Republic of Rafuna Breder of Yeshua, Zovin Shumshumi Agida din Har Malka. So Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, they bought sesame seeds. Aguda din Har Malka. On the edge, on the riverbank of the river of the king. Ogor Milchi Lavrinu. They hired a shipman to carry the sesame up, upstream, downstream, wherever it was. So the ship people, they accepted they accepted any event that might occur that would damage the shipment. Okay, eventually what happened? Let's say the river was dammed. The king decided to dam the river. So they obviously didn't have a lock system. So they had no way of going upstream. or downstream for that matter. So Amar lahu aguri chamra afkinu nielon. So Rav Huna and Rav Yehoshua says to him, okay, you can't get to the river, then hire donkeys and go schlep on the donkeys. You accepted full responsibility. The Kabila Salacha calls the Misyalad. You accepted any event that occurs. Also coming to Rava. So the ship people, they weren't so happy. They went to Rava. Amar lahu, so Rava says to Rav Huna, to Rav Yehoshua and Rav Papa. This is a famous epithet that the scholars hurled at one another. White ducks stealing people's coats. If you remember, we had an Exubus stuff. Pehei, I think it was.
Say white ducks.
Pehei, yeah.
People's coats?
White ducks. Why are they called white ducks? Because they had big white beards.
Oh, right. I remember. In my dictionary of nasty epithets, I don't remember hearing that one before.
We had an Exubus.
Okay.
And he says, this is an uncommon event, and therefore it was never predicted. Because it was never predicted, there is no way to. Because it was not predictable, therefore they're not responsible to hire donkeys to schlep the sesame seeds. Okay, Mishnah.
You mean that was in the fine print?
It wasn't in the fine print. It wasn't even a possibility. If it was in the fine print, then they would have to pay for it.
Anything you didn't say up top.
No, so they accepted full responsibility, except the full responsibility never included these sort of unusual, yeah. Okay, Mishnah, bottom of 73a. We're talking about here as somebody who gave a divorce, basically saying it should be divorced today if I die from this illness, or if I don't come back within this amount of time, or these terminally ill scenarios. Okay, the problem here is these divorces happen before the guy actually dies, and we'll soon see the specifics in a moment. We'll see it now. Tells you now. We'll see the Gemara, but we're actually talking about is a guy who's concerned he's going to die. He doesn't want. What he does is he says, "I'm divorcing you an hour before I die." Okay, and every hour the question, every hour the question is this going to be an hour that he dies? Mm-hmm. So how do we treat their marriage during that time period? Maybe she'll die, and then it turns out she was divorced an hour previously. So Gemara says, there's an issue of yichud here. Unless there are people there, even if it's a slave or a maidservant, except for her maidservant, because she's so comfortable around her maidservant, she would not be concerned to be intimate with her husband around her maidservant. Okay. What else is her status during this time period? Yehudah says, it's as if they're regularly married. Rabbi Dovid says, it's as if they're partially married, because we never really know. Maybe this will be the hour that they'll be divorced. Okay. What happens if somebody had an affair with her? Not her husband, somebody else. So the question, let's say it was a mistake. Okay. So he has to bring a carbon. Okay. Or if he's guilty, the question is, would he get the death penalty? So this is the question. According to Rabbi Yehudah, so we treat her as a married woman. There's proper penalties. According to Rabbi Yehudah, she's sort of a Suffolk divorce. And therefore, if one has an affair with her by accident, he would bring an asham tolis. Exactly. So he bring a doubtful sin offering. He doesn't know whether or not he sinned, because it could be he would have died, then he would not have sinned. Okay. The rabbis taught. See, 1 second. In this scenario, a guy gives divorce today after I die, and what happens? They did have yichud. They were in seclusion in a dark place, or They slept right near each other, she slept underneath his bed. We are not concerned that they were intimate. However, but we are concerned about znus, that the fact that they were intimate. Well, what does that mean? We'll explain in a moment. And we're not concerned about kedushin. We're also concerned about kedushin. Mike Amr, what exactly is going on here? Amr of Nachman, Amr Rabba Rafu, this is what we're talking about. Ra'u Shanivala. If we saw them intimate, Chayshin Mishum Kedushin. They were concerned that they had an intention to get married again, and therefore we require another divorce. Nosan Lok Safim. However, if he gave her money, then Chayshin Mishum Znos. Then we say that actually he sort of paid her, in a promiscuous sense, not that money was a kedushin money. Sort of the payment of a prostitute. And we're not, and in that scenario, we're not concerned that they had any intention of marriage. Rabbi Yossi says, also in this scenario, we're concerned about kedushin. In other words, if he gives her money, we're concerned that money is not money, sort of an illicit payment, but it's the money of kedushin, and therefore they do have to write a second divorce. Okay. Okay, so now there's a famous Mishnah where Beis Shammai and Beis Hill have a question. If a couple, one second, the exact specifics. Hold on. Yeah. Somebody who divorced his wife and they slept in the same hotel room afterwards. According to Beis Shammai, we're concerned that they did so with the intention of marriage, and according to Beis Hill, we're not concerned. Okay, so let's explain the specifics. Now, okay, one second. The Amar Rabba Bachana, Amar B'Yechanan. One second. Let's do the exact Mishnah. Hold on. Sorry, the opposite. According to Beis Hill, if they sleep in the same hotel room, we do require a divorce. Beis Shammai says we do not require a divorce. Now, what does sleeping in the same hotel room mean? So Rabbi Rechana Amar B'Yechanan said, "Machlokes is kisharu shenivala." It wasn't just that they slept in the same hotel room, but we actually know that they were intimate. Avalei ra'u shenivala. But if we did not see them intimate with each other, then everyone agrees we do not require a divorce. This opinion, this goes according to everybody's opinion. In other words, in this previous brayso, so we said that the entire debate between Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis is in a scenario where they were intimate with each other. But if they were not intimate with each other, we are not concerned for kedushin, and there's no kedushin concern that fits very well with the statement of Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says the machlokes in Beis Shammai and Beis Hill is only when they were intimate. But if they weren't intimate, then there's no concern for kedushin. So that opinion works with everybody. That makes a lot of sense. Abaya, the following question: the Bryce doesn't mention a word about money. Abaya says, in other words, Abaya rejects the notion that when we talk about concern for znus, we're talking about actually where money was transacted, and that's where we say that money was an illicit payment and it was paid for promiscuity. So Abaya rejects the notion that there was any concern about money because there's no talk about money in the Mishnah, in the Brisa. So Abaya has a different explanation. If they saw them being intimate, then we suspect that there is nos. But we're not concerned about kedushin. We're not concerned that they had any intention of getting married. We're also concerned about kedushin. Okay. Okay, so now going back to the debate between Beis Shammai and Beis Hill. That debate is talking about a scenario where they were intimate. And what does Beis Hill say? require a divorce. We are concerned that they did this with the intention of marriage. So who does that fit with? If it's the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah, it does not fit with the Rabbanon's opinion, because the rabbi's opinion is that we're not concerned for Kedushin. And Beisol would say we would be concerned for Kedushin. So it goes the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah. Okay. Masif Rava. So Rava has the following question. Imkain, my af. Rabbi Yehudah says, af Kedushin. We're also concerned about Kedushin. 1 second. Now, that implies that Rabbi Yossi is saying a stringency. In other words, that suspecting for Kedushin is actually more stringent than not suspecting for Kedushin. 1 second, hold on. Sorry. In other words, Rabbi Yossi implies that the af means also Kedushin, meaning not only do we suspect Znus, we also suspect Kedushin. But what is this? What is there to suspect about Znus? Znus is to the contrary. Znus is a leniency. If we consider promiscuity, then we don't consider anything legal or binding about this action. So I'm also concerned about Kedushin. There's no also. I am concerned about Kedushin. Because there's nothing about promiscuity that's an also statement. There's nothing promiscuity, if anything, is a leniency there. Okay, so Rava reframes it. Rava, third version of the Gemara. This is what we mean to say. Okay, so the af of Rabbi Yossi also is going on a scenario where we did not see her being intimate. In other words, the rabbis say if we saw them being intimate, we're concerned about Kedushin. Rabbi Yossi says, I'm sorry. The rabbis say even if we see them being intimate, we're not concerned about Kedushin. And Rabbi Yossi says, even if we didn't see them being intimate, we're concerned about Kedushin. Certainly, when we did see them being intimate, there for sure we're concerned about Kedushin. Okay, if that's the case, so Rabbi Yossi says, even without a sexual encounter, without a certain sexual encounter, we are concerned about Kedushin. And certainly where there was a confirmed encounter. And the rabbis say no. The rabbis say even where we know that they were intimate, we're still going to be lenient and treat it as if it was an event of promiscuity and not an event of Kedusha. So the Gemara says if that's the case, okay, so now we look at the question of Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says we see them being we according to the explanation of Rabbi Yechanan, we see them being intimate, we're concerned with Kedushin. Whose opinion is this? According to the rabbis, we see them being intimate is not grounds for Kedushin. According to Rabbi Yechanan, even not seeing them being intimate is grounds for Kedushin. So who does his opinion go? Like nobody. Okay, it's just another 2 minutes briefly. Just summarize the Gemara. The Gemara says we are concerned about Znus, not concerned about Kedushin. And Rabbi says we're also concerned about Kedushin. We have 3 versions of the Gemara. According to the first version of the Gemara, we're talking about everyone agrees that if they're intimate with each other, we're concerned for Kedushin. The question now is if money was transacted, does that eliminate the Kedushin concern? Because that money is money of an illicit payment and not money of Kedushin. Rabbi says no, the money is money of Kedushin. Abaye rejected it because Abaye didn't want to claim that money is not listed as a factor in the brisa. So Abaye reframes the Gemara. According to Abaye, the rabbi's opinion is if they were intimate, there was no Kedushin concern. We presume it's Nus, not Kedushin. Rabbi Yossi says we're concerned it's Kedushin. And the final and Rava doesn't like that because what's the also? The also there is inappropriate. It should be straight out. We're concerned with Kedushin. So Rava says that very interesting phraseology, phrasing. The rabbis say that even if they were intimate, no concern of Kedushin. Says Rabbi Yossi, even if they weren't intimate, we're also concerned of Kedushin. Certainly, if they were intimate, also that is included in a concern of Kedushin. Stop here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm always curious about it.